This is the story of the village of MARIANAD in the south of India, and these are the 4 young people who are helping to write that story. 3 of them are Indians and 1 is a European. Sister Loretta is an Italian nun and a trained nurse. John Kurian has a degree in business methods and administration. Nalini is a specialist in rural development and leadership training. And Eugene Kolas has studied the cooperative movement in both India and Canada. Together, these 4 people are planning a gentle revolution among the fishermen of Kerala, which is bringing new hope to those people who draw their living from the depths of the Indian Ocean. Of the 4 young people, Eugene Kolas is the only one who comes from the locality.
I am from a fishing community, from a fishing family. My cousins are all fishermen, all my relatives are fishermen. And when I was doing my studies, I realized that instead of making money for me, I should do something for my own family, that in a larger sense. So also, when I was about to expect my results, one of my cousins, first cousins, drowned in the sea. So that made me still believe that I should do something for these people. So, and I have heard of some developmental projects going on in different parts of Kerala. So I wanted to work in that line, and I got a letter from the bishop for a training in that line. So after the training, the bishop asked me to come back, and he offered this post. That's how I came to MARIANAD.
Eugene Kolas has been more fortunate than many of his fellow countrymen in the kind of education he has received at home and abroad. If he so chose to look for them, there are many well-paid jobs and opportunities for personal advancement open to him. Instead, he has chosen to work among the fishermen of Kerala, not only because he himself is of fishing stock and wants to better the lot of his own people, but also because he feels that fishing is one of India's most important industries. 80% of the fish landings in Kerala are made by small fishermen like these of MARIANAD, who battle with the sea to collect its hidden wealth, but who have never themselves received a fair share of it. The boats used by the fishermen at Kerala are called catamarans. They are so frail and primitive that they would hardly look safe on a village pond, yet their very simplicity is the source of their strength. They are each made from 3 coconut trunks roughly lashed together with a collapsible mast and sail. The water penetrates between the tree trunks, but this doesn't affect the boats because they are in effect rafts floating on the sea rather than boats sailing on it. The fishing is done by hard line, long line or by net, depending on the season and on the type of fish sought. At sea, the fishermen of Kerala are in their element. On land, they are the victims of a social system that has been exploiting them and their forefathers for many generations. It was to help them against this kind of exploitation that the village of MARIANAD was originally built. It was started by the Bishop of Trivandrum with help from the state government of Kerala. The area is a strongly Catholic one, and many of the initiatives in social planning came from the church. The present Bishop, Peter Bernard Pereira, used to work among the fishing people and knew their needs. He hoped to make MARIANAD a centre and a headline for the idea of self-help among all the fishing villages of the coast. MARIANAD is not therefore a traditional village. Its houses are made from brick and mortar rather than from coconut leaves, and its people have all come to live here within the past 8 years. They agreed to pay off the cost of their houses with the profits from their fishing. Bishop Pereira had found out at an early stage that the fishing people valued only what they paid for. The applicants for the village were carefully screened, and only those who were prepared to work hard and plan for the future were accepted and allowed to take possession of the new houses. When they moved into the village, a number of social workers followed them. One of them still lives in MARIANAD, Sister Loretta.
So when I arrived, we were a small team of 3 people. We are all foreigners. And actually we came with a lot of desire to start many things, but when we arrived in the village, we realized that first of all that we have to learn ourselves, to live with the people, to learn the language. Actually at the beginning when we came to settle down here, we were having a lot of meeting with the women especially. And we were asking what we could do together. And the women were asking, especially one lady I remember, Dawn is not here, Elizabeth, and she was having 3 little children and they were all the time sick. And she was telling me especially that I am a nurse, but she was supposed to be very far and she was not very well attended for the children, that could start a kind of hospital or a dispensary. How much you have again?
Setting up a dispensary was not exactly what Sister Loretta had in mind when she came to MARIANAD. But the first and most valuable lesson she learned in those first months was that she should give the people what they needed and not what she thought they ought to need. She had the good sense and the good humour to shelve all the elaborate social schemes she had been planning and provide the people with the medical aid they were asking for. As time passed, Sister Loretta and the people of MARIANAD came to know each other much better. In a village which had no doctor, she was the one they all turned to in time of sickness. It wasn't enough for her to hand out medicine at the dispensary. She also had to know something about the way they lived, about their diet and their hygiene, in order to reduce the risk of disease and epidemics. At the same time, the principle was enforced that people who were working must pay for any medicine or treatment they received. Sister Loretta started special clinics, one for pregnant women and one to give education in the elements of hygiene and dietetics. Another trained nurse was added to the staff to make it possible for Sister Loretta to make visits to neighbouring villages and conduct regular clinics in them. As time went on, Sister Loretta was joined by the other members of the team of animators, Nalini, Eugene, John Kurian. They waited patiently to see what form the next request would take. Once again, it came from the women. In the coast villages, the women help in the distribution of the fish. They carry it on their heads to the inland towns and villages, sometimes as far as 15 or 20 miles away. While the women were away, someone had to look after the young children. Traditionally, the older children minded the younger ones, which meant in practice that many of them never had a chance of attending school and getting an education. This was the next problem which had to be faced. By now the women of MARIANAD were getting used to the idea of meeting together to discuss their problems and to devise means of tackling them. The way to deal with this one seemed to be by setting up some kind of creche or kindergarten, where all the young children could be brought together and cared for, while their mothers were at work and their older sisters at school. And so it happened. When the need had been expressed, the animators were happy to give their advice. A creche and playground were quickly organised. The babies were cared for in special buildings, while those who were a little older were provided with swings and slides and merry-go-rounds. At the same time, a social training centre for adult women got underway with courses in home management, mother and child care, marriage guidance, home nursing and public health hygiene. Students of these training courses help in the creche and children's playground at MARIANAD as part of the practical side of their training. Another development was the starting of a kindergarten school for the children. One of the helpers undertook to teach them their prayers and their catechism, and this gradually expanded into a regular class where the children were taught religion and their local language, Malayalam. Once again, the principle was insisted on that the people must be prepared to pay for the services they receive. The children had to bring their few coppers with them and pay them into the communal fund. It was around this time that an approach was made to Goethe, the Irish Freedom from Hunger campaign, for help in the building of a community centre. The result was Goethe House, a multi-purpose building which has become the centre of life for the women in the village. One part is used as a shop, which sells rice and grain and oil and other essential commodities at prices which the people can easily afford. The inside of Goethe House is a social and community centre, which the women can use when they're not working with the fish. Arts and crafts are taught, and one of the most popular activities is net making, which has the advantage of being useful to the community and of earning extra pocket money for the net makers. Recently they've started to use nylon for their nets. They were warned by their menfolk that the nylon would drive the fish away, but the men were wrong, and the new nets have proved much more flexible and hard-wearing than the old. A woman working for 7 hours a day can hardly earn more than 50 paise, or 3.5 pence in our money, in Kerala. At Goethe House, women are trained in other kinds of sophisticated craft work, such as knitting and embroidery. Their work is then marketed on a cooperative basis and provides the women with a better wage than they could ever expect to earn on their own.
primary സംഘത്തെ ഒരു വിവിധോദ്ദേശ സംഘമാക്കണമെന്നാണ് അവരുടെ ഉദ്ദേശം. വിവിധോദ്ദേശ സംഘമാകുമ്പോൾ അതിൻ്റെ ബൈലായാലും
Up to this, the men had shown little interest in cooperation. What finally brought them together was a project to build a new church in place of the hall in which Mass had been set up to then. They intended to put aside a proportion of their catch each week, but when they did their sums, they found that they were not getting anything like a fair price for their fish. The foundation stone of the church was laid, but the money to continue with the building was simply not available, and there seemed no chance of an improvement in the situation. The root of the men's problem was the system of auctioning fish. The fishermen were good at catching fish, but bad at selling it. When they compared notes, they discovered that all of them had the same kind of stories to tell, of being cheated by auctioneers, exploited by moneylenders, and squeezed by the middlemen who grow as thickly as coconut palms along the beaches of Kerala. The fishermen brought their problems to the animators, and they found the animators ready for them. They proposed what seemed to be the only solution. The fishermen must form a co-op, employ their own auctioneers, and cut out the middlemen. The pros and cons were all thrashed out one Saturday evening, and in the end the men said, yes, we'll auction our own fish ourselves, starting next Monday. And so the fishermen's co-op was born, and the benefits of cooperation made clear to all. In fact, the cooperative auction worked so well that soon fishermen were coming from other villages to sell their catch on the beach at MARIANAD, where prices were fair, and the dishonest merchants and moneylenders had no longer any place. The auctioneers don't all employ the same technique. Some use the hard sell, firm-jawed and steely-eyed, refusing to take no for an answer. Others prefer the soft sell and exude charm and benevolence to the prospective customers. But whatever the technique of the auctioneer, the important thing is that the fish are sold at a fair price. The gain for the fishermen at MARIANAD has been immense, not just in terms of money, but in terms of human dignity.
സംഘത്തിലുള്ള ആൾക്കാർക്കാണെങ്കിൽ സംഘം വഴി ചേർന്നുകൊണ്ട്
As a member of the co-op, I am able to get a fair price and a higher price for the fish I catch, and I get it the very next day.
അതിന്റെ കാശ് തന്നെ
This is something that fishermen who are not members don't get. They have to sell their fish through a moneylender and may have to wait days for their money if they get it at all.
മൊത്തമായിട്ട് കുറെ കാശിന് മീൻ പിടിച്ചിരുന്നാൽ തന്നെ ഒരു മുതലാളി ഏൽപ്പിക്കുകയും അത് ഏതാനും കുറച്ച് ദിവസങ്ങൾ
When auctioning our fish, the co-op deducts 5%, of which 2% is credited to our personal savings accounts and 3% goes as commission to the co-op. This 3% is what makes the income of the co-op. If the co-op makes a profit, this is distributed among the members once a year. A man who is a member of the co-op feels he is really a person, and this is perhaps the most important thing of all.
Another problem looking for another solution. What was to be done when there were exceptionally large catches and there were not enough buyers on the beach? The old solution was to sell at giveaway prices or throw the fish away. But now the co-op has invested in an up-to-date plant where surplus fish can be processed and kept in refrigeration until a suitable market is found. Fish from MARIANAD is now regularly on sale as far away as the city of Trivandrum, which is 30 miles away, thanks to the business skill of John Kurian, one of the 4 animators.
Well, for facts, the cooperative started, for example, with a sale of 50,000 rupees, and now we have a sale of 600,000 rupees. That's about 10-fold increase in 6 years. And membership hasn't doubled, but has gone up by about 50%. Then, for example, savings. Savings has also more than gone up by 5 times the level at which it started. And savings is what the people have for themselves. Well, if income is an indicator, well, then you have people who have joined the cooperative have more than double their income. If participation is a success, then you have people who are really involved in the actual decision making in the cooperative. And if you see a meeting of a general body meeting of a cooperative, you'll really feel that, I mean, you know, they own the thing and they want to run it and they feel that it's theirs. And I think, you know, these are the 2 measures I would use to really be convinced that this is a people's organization which has been a success.
The other villages on the coast still keep their primitive appearance, picturesque to look at, but miserable to live in, especially during the monsoon season. But good news travels fast, and helping the good news to travel is the job of Nalini, the 4th and last member of the team of animators. The example of MARIANAD with its neat houses and prosperous people speaks louder than words. Nalini makes effective use of that example in her efforts to start training courses and to organise the cooperative movement in the neighbouring villages.
Well, the idea of MARIANAD was actually to have a demonstration in a small area to find out whether things could work, and if they did with the fishing community, then we would try to see if these experiments would work in natural villages, because you know MARIANAD has been a village that's been created. And so one of the first steps to extension was, when we felt confident about what we were doing, was that we could train young people from other fishing villages and interior villages to try to do similar things in their villages. And so we had a kind of training program, an intensive training program of 5 months, where young people who were selected from their villages came and lived in MARIANAD for 5 months. We had different subjects, related to personal life, social life, and life in the country. And when they went back to their villages, if they found that they could do something, then we helped them start small programs. Initially, the girls started things like mother and child care, children's programs, literacy programs for women. And then after that, alongside, we thought young men should also have some kind of orientation. People who had been studying, because you know in Kerala the rate of literacy is quite high. And so we started organizing leadership programs for young people. Through the young girls and boys who were already doing small things in their villages, and through what was actually happening in MARIANAD, fishermen thought that there was some possibility for them to come together as well. And so they began to approach us to ask whether we could help them organize into a cooperative society or things like this. They didn't really know what they wanted, but it was left to us to analyze their needs. And that's how we actually went. Of course, in many cases, the fishermen thought it was a way to get money. And we had many groups that kind of faded off because they realized that it was not the means to get money, but that they would have to first cooperate. So it was only really the groups who wanted to cooperate and then get something through that, through their own initiative, who pursued. So actually now we have outside 4 groups that are really active, although we could have had easily about 6 or 8 groups that asked for something to be done.
We believe that the people are poor not because they are destined to be poor. They have all the potentials to come up from their poverty. But the only thing is, in the existing society there are vested interests which are not allowing them to be away from this poverty. So it's enough that we make them aware of the situation in which they are and their potentiality, their power. Then we believe that the people can find out their own answers for the problems in which they are.
The MARIANAD Community Development Project and the Fishermen's Co-op are projects of the Social Service Society of the Diocese of Trivandrum. When Bishop Peter Bernard Pereira, Latin Catholic Bishop of Trivandrum, was himself a priest, he worked among fishermen on the slopes of Kerala. Being a man of charity, he was appalled at their low standard of living and the way they always seemed to be under the control of pawnbrokers and moneylenders, and so he tried to help. He raised money elsewhere and bought nets and boats for the fishermen. He set up machinery to market the fish on behalf of the fishermen. But the fishermen didn't understand the use of the nets, and the smarter ones told the others that the newfangled nets wouldn't work, or if they did, they would kill off all the fish. So the fishermen sold the nets for small amounts, and then told Father Pereira that they'd lost them. And when he tried to market the fish on the fishermen's behalf, he was cheated right, left and centre, and forced out of business with large debts. So he learnt a philosophy which now permeates all the social work in the Diocese of Trivandrum. It is that change must come naturally if it is to last. Outsiders can't come in and impose solutions. What they can do is to respond to the felt needs of the people and help to meet them. But the people must really have felt these needs if the help is to be of any use. The 4 animators of MARIANAD are all highly qualified and talented people who could do well in any professional career. They've chosen one which pays in terms of fulfillment rather than in terms of money. They've brought to the people of the coast a wealth of skill and expert knowledge, but they've also learned a lot themselves. They've learned to be patient and to respect the right of others to make up their own minds in their own time. Because they built slowly, they've built something that will last.